Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman, hard-hitting news that networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. I don't know if I can say this, but here I'm going to do it anyway. Donald Trump might be schizophrenic, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what's going on with that. Joe Rogan in the news, we'll discuss that. Marjorie Taylor Greene in the news, we'll discuss that. Thomas Massey in the news, we'll discuss that. I don't even know where to go with some of this. Trump will attend the World Economic Forum. Mike Johnson responds to critiques that they're not working or they weren't working in the government shutdown. A new Harris poll shows financial stress among people that make over six figures. Oh, man. There's a video called Close My Ears by Gun Hill Road. Michael Harrison over at Talkers doing a great job with that. Rising housing costs. Main reason for following U.S. fertility rates. We talked about that, but that's worthy of a revisit. It's all on Liberty Roundtable Live. Welcome to the show. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. As you know, we reject revolution and stand for peaceful restoration of the greatest country on the face of the earth. We promote God, family, and country, protect life, liberty, and property. Do so in the traditions of our founders. This is the broadcast for November the 17th in the year of our Lord, 2025. We are syndicated by the Loving Liberty Radio Networks and TV networks. Spread the word, lovingliberty.net. You can download our iPhone or the Android app, watch on mobile, listen on mobile, or the website, lovingliberty.net. There's so much to cover, so little time. Dr. Scott Bradley not with us. He's on the road traveling without connectivity today, so our prayers are with him and his family. They'll travel safely. All will be well. Here's my headline for today's show, ladies and gentlemen. This is critical. We the people demand more. Expose the crimes. Break the cover-ups. And prosecute every guilty actor, no exception. Let me say that again. We the people demand more. Expose the crimes. Break the cover-ups. And prosecute every guilty actor, no exception. That's my headline for today. That's the anchor, focus of today's discussions. And we, the American people, need to double down, bust out, and demand accountability from our Congress critters. They work for us, not the other way around. Now, in strange reversal, Donald Trump claims that House Republicans should indeed vote to release the Epstein files. Wait a minute. I don't even know where Donald stands on this issue. He ran on releasing the files. Then he went ballistic on anybody who advocated for the release of the files, calling it a massive hoax, a Democrat hoax. Now he's back to saying we need to call for those files. Well, there's an interesting twist headline from Patriot News. They call it a fact check. They say, yes, Trump tried to have Epstein grand jury docs released, but they say 3 Democrat-appointed judges stopped him from doing so. So wait a minute. Trump wanted to release the grand jury documents. 3 Democrat judges said no. Then Donald Trump, ran for the next term and everything else on saying, hey, let's release these files. We're going to do it. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Jeffrey's a bad actor. We got to. And then Trump went, no, don't release the files. How dare you? It's a Democrat hoax. And now Trump's back on. Oh, we got to go ahead and release these files. In strange reversal is what it's called. Now, I don't even really know how to respond to this. Because here's the deal, in my opinion. Thomas Massey is gaining the upper hand. Rand Paul gaining the upper hand. Others in the House and Senate who are conservative are starting to gain the upper hand. Republicans, MAGA, whatever word you want to use for this, they're not lockstep with the Donald anymore. And I think this is a good thing. Donald has been acting like a dictator. He's out of control and he needs to stop. Now, some are going to say, whoa, Sam, how dare you criticize the president like that? Look, the president's nothing more than the average Joe like the rest of us. He just happened to get elected because he's famous and has a lot of money. Okay? We've become a selection-oriented vote system, not election-oriented vote system. That's the problem. And with big money, with a lot of fame, not too hard to get selected, right? The problem with all this, ladies and gentlemen, is whenever Donald does what's right, I praise him and support him 100%. Whenever he does what's wrong, I stand against him and I explain the constitutional and or the moral reasons why I'm opposing Donald Trump. So let me give you an example. Why is Trump for and against and for and against and for and against the Epstein files? Don't know. Is he guilty? Doubt it. Was he involved? Probably. To what degree? We'll never know. They don't want you to know. Will we release more files? Oh, yeah. They released, 23,000 pages just recently. Then the Democrats released a bunch of emails that implicated Donald in many strange ways. But it's all conflicting. It's all meant for deception. It's all meant to gain focus. Watch what the left hand does while the right hand's getting the focus is my advice. Now, Thomas Massey wants a vote. He wants to rule out the veto of the Epstein files in the release. Yeah, the Republican, meaning Thomas Massey, said there could be a deluge of GOP-supported actions. In other words, people are turning against the Donald. They're going, we're going to release the files. I don't know why people are trying to follow a president in the first place. A man that seems to be a little bit schizophrenic, to be honest with you. I don't know if he's for or against the Epstein file release. I don't know if he's for or against sex trafficking. Oh, Sam, how dare you say that? Of course he's against it. What are you thinking? Oh, yeah, this is the guy that talked about women's vajayjays in the locker rooms and got busted. This is the guy that then had to pay money for his cover-up with who knows who, that weird lady, whatever her name is, Stormy Daniels. We don't even know her real, well, we know her real name, but it's not what she goes by. Okay. All kinds of allegations. The other woman in the dressing room with the Donald. Okay. And then now he's for the Epstein file release. Oh, I was for it all along. I tried to do it, but the Democrat judges stopped me. Now we're just into partisan politic blame games. That's all we're talking about. Go against Thomas Massey because he wants to release the files. Go against Greene because she wants to release the files. Anybody that decides they want to release the files is Trump's enemy. And now what? Trump says he wants to, everybody should vote to release the files. Does Donald see the sea change against him? Is that what's happening? I'm not interested in people. I'm not interested in politics. I'm interested in accountability and principle. Okay? Is there corruption in the Epstein files that relate to modern prosecutions? If there are, let's move ahead and get it done. If there's not, Epstein's dead, right? At least that's what we're told. So, again, my comment, we the people demand more. Let's expose the crimes, break the cover-ups, and prosecute every guilty actor, no exceptions. Not even an exception for the Donald if he's guilty. Okay? Now, I'm not here to attack President Trump. What I'm here to do is stand on principle and stand for what's right. And when Trump decides he's against me one day and my buddy the next day, and what about loyalty, President Trump? You're so into loyalty, but it's only loyalty to you, right? Well, I have loyalty. I have fidelity to 1, my God, 2, my spouse, my wife, and 3, to my family, to my children, and then to my country. And my country doesn't have partisan politics involved. Oh, the Democrats are bad, the Republicans are good, or the Republicans are bad, the Democrats are great. Those lies. That's a divide and conquer tactic that the founding fathers warned against. What I'm talking about is fidelity to, loyalty to the supreme law of the land, the Constitution for the United States of America. Okay? And I agree with Thomas Massey. There could be a deluge of support. But here's the problem. I don't know why Trump's in a fight with Thomas Massey, and I don't know why Trump is in a fight with Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Massey are somehow at odds with MAGA. I don't really even understand why. Is it over the Epstein files? Well, Trump's been back and forth on that so many times, I have no idea where he even stands. He's flip-flopped, and he's so confused on the topic, I don't even know if he knows if he's involved or not. Now, Trump withdrew his endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene, And he then continued his criticism of her over the weekend via his network, Truth Social. Trump disparaged Greene, called her a lightweight, a rhino, accused her of betraying the Republican Party after her appearance on The View, and supposedly moving left. Well, here's the problem with Trump's stance. Is it a bad thing to go on The View? Every one of these conservative clowns goes on the liberal media on a daily basis. They won't come on our channels. They won't come on real constitutional conservative media. They won't come on with people who have a backbone, who will stand up on moral principles. But they'll go on the liberal shows all day long. But Marjorie Taylor Greene does it? Oh boy, she's a traitor, Trump says. Shame on the Donald. We'll talk about it more in seconds. Liberty Roundtable Live.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
Yeah, so the Donald is mocking Marjorie Taylor Greene. He continued his criticism of the weekend on Truth Social, his own network. He equated her to other politicians that he called, quote, fake, including liking her to who he calls Rand Paul Jr. That would be Thomas Massey. Why? Because Thomas Massey votes against the Republicans often. And so now the attack continues on Greene and Massey. Trump has given Greene several different nicknames, including Wacky Marjorie, Marjorie Taylor Brown, and Marjorie Traitor Brown. Greene simply indicated that her breakover with Trump is over the release of the Epstein files and bickering different views on the Israel issue. So you got differing views. They're bickering over it, and I don't understand it at all. Okay, Greene comes out and says she supports Trump despite his personal attacks. That's a pretty principled stance. But see, Donald doesn't like her saying, oh yeah, you got to stop being in bed with Israel. Right? That's the deal. You speak up against Israel and oh boy, you're in the doghouse no matter what. But what is the truth? See, Tucker Carlson spoke up against Israel and Nick Fuentes. Now, I'm not defending Nick or Tucker or anybody else, Greene, Trump, none of them. I'm simply saying there's this thing called the supreme law of the land, baby, the Constitution. And the supreme law of the land says if we're going to go to war with anybody, or if we're going to conduct marking reprisals, or we're going to do any of these things, you got to go to Congress. You simply got to go to Congress. Well, that's what Trump has not done. Now, is it that Mike Johnson won't cooperate? Maybe. Don't know. If that's true, then Trump, why isn't your attention your focus on the Speaker of the House, who has the ability to bring up and push for and promote legislation supporting your agenda. He hasn't done it. But the non-release of the Epstein files, wait a minute. Now, Donald Trump just said to release them. Right after he said don't release them. Right after he said do release them. Right after he said don't release them, right? And Marjorie Taylor Greene is supposed to be the whacked out one. Greene says she supports Trump, despite the attacks. I support President Trump, too, without any attacks in those things that he has constitutional responsibility for. In other words, Donald, I support you, my friend, my dear brother, when you obey the supreme law of the land and keep your oath of office, which means, in a summation, stay in your lane, buddy. That's what we're talking about. Donald, you got to stay in your lane. And when you go out of your lane, you get people like me against you. Not because we're against you, but because we're against your actions. Now, Greene sadly says, I'm now getting threats over the Trump feud. She says harassers are being, quote, egged on by the most powerful man in the world. I think she's right about that. Now, why on earth would Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, why would they be under attack by Donald Trump? Why? Let me think. Because they disagree on some things? Because Greene and Massey and Rand Paul and a few others have their own mind on topics? Is that the problem? Let me give you an example. Marjorie Taylor Greene now has announced that she plans to introduce legislation that would aggressively phase out and ultimately abolish the H-1 visa program, or the H-1B visa program, right? She wants to shut it down. Now, Donald says we don't have the talent in America to run America. That's where we got to import talent. That's where we got to have the H-1B visa programs. And Greene and others are saying we've got the talent right here in America. I think there's truth to both sides. I think we have plenty of talent in America, but it's true that we've been falling behind. That's a fact also. Why have we been falling behind? Well, for many reasons. Number one, we've literally gutted our job base. We've literally sent business overseas for decades. Now, I personally don't think it's a problem to use overseas work. I think that the government should belong in a very unique position, which is let's create a stable, level playing field, and let's all operate from that and let the best man win. I've employed people overseas for quite some time. Russia, the Philippines, other places. Why? Because they're talented and they're inexpensive. Why? Because it's necessary in the modern day when I've got so much payroll regulation in the United States that it's out of control. I mean, I employ people in different states, and every other day their minimum wage goes up and up and up and up. How much can I pay? Right? Now, Donald Trump crossed a line, in my opinion. And this is part of the reason that I'm going after him when I've been holding my tongue quite a bit, saying, hey, they can have differing opinions, and I respect their differing opinions. But Donald Trump has gone too far this time, ladies and gentlemen, and that's the real focus here today. Headline, Trump infuriates MAGA. In other words, infuriates the Make America Great Again crowd, me being, to some degree, one of them. I'm not an always Trumper, I'm not a never Trumper, and I'm not really in the MAGA movement, except for I do want to make America great again. I want to make every country great again. Or I want to keep every country great if they're already great, right? Anyway, Trump infuriated MAGA by targeting Thomas Massey. It's one thing to target him over politics. It's another thing to target him over disagreements of I think this and you think that and whatever. That feud's been going on for quite some time with Donald and Thomas and now the Donald and Greene and the Donald and Rand Paul, and it's been going on and on. How he leaves the extreme Democrats alone, like Nancy Pelosi and Ocasio-Cortez and some of these other, Omar and all these other, people. He leaves them alone. Doesn't attack George Soros, really. But yet attacks these people. It's just shocking to me. But he crossed a big line. And you say, what are you talking about, Sam? He attacked Thomas Massey for marrying 16 months after his wife's death. Anthony Gonzalez with the piece. Now, Donald, you've crossed the line, buddy. Number one, you've had a bunch of wives, so let's stop right there. Okay? Number two, Thomas Massey was married to this wife for 36 years, from what I understand. And he got married, and Trump basically mocked his marriage, his new marriage, and told the girl she'll wake up and realize she got hitched to a loser. Okay, we've gone way too far, folks. Donald Trump is getting desperate because MAGA is not 100% in lockstep with him anymore. And now he's angering MAGA on subject after subject after subject, blowing up a bunch of drug boats without authority from Congress. Stay in your lane, Donald. Going ahead and acting like tariffs are just the presidential purview. They're not. It's a congressional constitutional responsibility. So tariffs are good. You're willy-nilly without congressional backing is bad. Mocking someone for getting married 16 months after. What is he saying? He married too quickly? Well, that's easy for someone else to say who's not there. Remember, if you have a wife, you love her, you care for her, she's sick, she dies, whatever. And I don't know everything about Massey's wife. I don't really study other people's wives very much, especially if they're not in the political realm, right? So, but here's the deal. You know, sometimes suffering happens long, long before, and people don't know it. Let me explain what I mean. I had a dear friend of mine, and he was married to a woman that I know very well. I won't give any relationships away or anything else. She got breast cancer, and she eventually died, and she had breast cancer for 7 or 8 years, I think it was, before she passed away. And so then the friend of mine got married not too long after his wife died. And people were kind of critical of him. They were like, how dare he do that so quickly? And I talked to him about this personally, and his response was, I suffered for 7 years. I grieved for 7 years while everybody else thought she was alive, and even though we knew she had cancer, thought she was doing relatively well, and they started grieving when she passed away. I grieved for 7 years, holding her in my arms, loving her, serving her, taking care of her. And then when she passed away, yeah, it took me a little bit of time to adjust but it was time for me to move on in my life. In fact, that's what she asked me to do, he said. We have children. She asked me to please recover. Please don't mourn too long. Now, I don't know what the situation is with Thomas Massey. I have no idea. But to mock him in a situation like that is just beyond the pale, people. Just out of control, over the top, filled with desperation, must stop. So I hope everybody calls Donald out on this one. I don't know Thomas Massey's personal deal, and I could be wrong. It could be a situation where, Thomas is whatever. I'm not here to judge, and I don't know. And it's very, very personal. But what happened to his wife, right? I mean, that's worthy of at least trying to know. Not that I want to pry into his life, but it'd be, if we're going to talk about this publicly, we ought to at least know what happened. The sad part is, okay, I don't know. I think it's a personal matter, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even know how to respond to this, because I believe that it's so personal and so over the top. There used to be an unwritten rule in politics, which was don't go after the non-political parties, whether it be children or spouses or whatever else. If they're not involved in politics, leave them out of it. Respect and protect someone's family. Thanks to Donald, that's all gone to toothpicks, right? Hang tight. Sam Bushman, Liberty Roundtable Live.
Exposing corruption, informing citizens, pursuing liberty. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Greg Clugston in Washington. The Federal Aviation Administration has ended all restrictions on commercial flights that were imposed during the government shutdown at 40 major U.S. airports. Airlines resumed normal flight schedules at 6 a.m. Eastern Time this morning. President Trump has made a U-turn when it comes to releasing the Epstein files.
President Trump now says House Republicans should vote to release the files in the Jeffrey Epstein case. Trump had been fighting the proposal as more Republicans supported the release of the files, but that changed Sunday night. Writing on social media, Trump said, quote, "We have nothing to hide." Trump's statement followed a fierce fight within the GOP over the files, including a split with Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Mike Hempen, Washington.
The UN Security Council has scheduled a vote for later today on a U.S. peace plan for Gaza. Here's the BBC's Yolanda Nell.
There have been intense negotiations over the draft text of this Gaza resolution, with Washington warning that any vote against it could lead to a return to fighting with Israel. The draft authorizes the creation of an international stabilization force, working with Israel and Egypt, as well as newly trained Palestinian police. Part of its mandate would be to decommission weapons held by Hamas and other armed groups. A board of peace, expected to be headed by President Trump, would oversee transitional governance. Following pressure from key Arab states, the latest text mentions a possible future Palestinian state.
John Fetterman is back home with his family in Pennsylvania after being hospitalized. The senator's office said he had a ventricular fibrillation flare-up that caused him to feel lightheaded and take a fall late last week. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hey, I'm Mike Slater. My dad passed away at the age of 63. It's out of nowhere. Had a stroke. Super hard, obviously, for the whole family, but my dad had life insurance. This is why I have life insurance for my family, for my wife and 4 kids. And the best place to get life insurance is ethos.com, because you can do it in 10 minutes. And there's no medical exam and no blood test, just a few health questions. Get life insurance in 10 minutes so your family is protected. Ethos, E-T-H-O-S, ethos.com/Mike.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm, and Chuck McDowell, definitely not an attorney. This is Chuck. If someone talked you into buying something really silly and you want to get out of that silly little thing, my advice, get the facts. Call me and I'll send you our timeshare exit kit absolutely free. Inside, you'll learn how timeshare works and all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your free exit info kit. 800-762-6565. That's 800-762-6565.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Step into the boots of the American West with Range Magazine, where grit meets grace. This is a front row seat to the stories, struggles, and triumphs of ranchers, farmers, and stewards of the land. From jaw-dropping photography to no-nonsense reporting, Range brings you the untold tales of life on the range. Whether you're a city dweller with a cowboy's heart or living life where the pavement ends, Range speaks to the soul of the West. Subscribe today at rangemagazine.com.
Attention collectors and savvy investors. We are excited to announce a momentous evolution in our journey. Introducing Free Water Coin Company, formerly known as Rust Coin and Gift. This rebranding takes us back to the very roots of where it all began, Free Water, Oregon. It's a tribute to the legacy of Al Rust and a celebration of 3 generations of dedication to excellence in the world of coins and precious gifts. Al, Brian, and Jake Rust standing strong through 64 years of service. Discover a world of exceptional service at Free Water Coin Company, your premier destination for genuine, honest money and precious gifts. Under Brian's expert guidance, Free Water Coin Company, building on the legacy of Rust Coin and Gift, continues its tradition of trust and excellence. Visit us at our Provo, Utah location. Explore our treasures online at freewatercoinco.com or call us at 801-377-1574. Free Water Coin Company, where your future is built one honest coin at a time.
I'm talking about shame on the Donald, ladies and gentlemen. He attacked Thomas Massey for getting married 16 months after his wife passed away. You've crossed a line, Donald, that you shouldn't have crossed, sir. It's out of control, and it needs to stop. Look, there's been an unwritten rule in politics. Don't attack somebody who's not politically involved, and don't attack family and children and this kind of stuff. But Donald is out of control. I don't know what the deal is with Thomas Massey and his wife, but his wife's name was Rhonda. And she died suddenly at home on June 27th, 2024 at age 51. I guess there was an autopsy conducted. She died at home. There's no accusations of foul play. They didn't take vaccinations for COVID, so some can have a conspiracy or theorize that killed her. Don't know. Multiple consistent reports say the autopsy was attributed to, they call it respiratory complications of a chronic autoimmune muscle disease, myopathy. No official government record is publicly posted that we can focus on this about, but there's no evidence of any foul play or anything like that. Now, I don't know how to respond to this, because to me, it's just out of control. And I don't know the relationship between Thomas and Rhonda. I'm sure it's very tough. But I also know if you've got some kind of immune disease, it might have gone on since, if it was COVID related, might have gone on for several years there. But why are we attacking him about his new spouse and saying to the new spouse publicly, and we're talking about the President of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, the world leader, as Marjorie Taylor Greene put it, what is this, she said? The most powerful man in the world, right? Okay, so we're going to attack Greene, we're going to attack Rand Paul, we're going to attack basically Ron Paul's views, Sam Bushman views, everybody that really would back President Trump, and then we're going to attack Thomas Massey after his wife dies and he remarries? I just think Trump has got to stop. He's out of control. Okay? I don't know if he's drunk with power, but I don't seek for power, ladies and gentlemen. I seek to pull it down. And on one hand, I'm the civility guy. I believe we should promote a clarion call for civility. I'm on a civility campaign or campaign for civility pledge. But at what point do we say it's not civil to be quiet? In other words, to let this go unchallenged is not a civil thing to do. It's acting like it's okay by the President of the United States of America, the leader of the free world, the most popular and most powerful man in the entire world, who commands the most advanced military the world's ever seen. This guy, he's literally attacking a lowly congressman for marrying after his wife passes away. We ought to track Donald's marriages. How long did he marry after somebody so-and-so, this and that and the other? See, that's just a spiral downwards. Anyway, Greene says she supports Trump despite his attacks. I agree with Greene. I support Trump for the most part. When you do good, Donald, you do really good. You hinted that you're going to abolish the IRS. Why didn't you get it done? Instead of babbling about Greene, instead of babbling about Thomas Massey, why don't you abolish the IRS and do something valuable for a change? If you want to blow up boats, this war on drugs is an absolute failure. If you want to blow up boats and you believe that you have credible information, take it to Congress as the Constitution calls for and work across not only partisan lines, which I reject, but across intentional separations of power. When you get that done, Donald, I'll believe you're the art of the deal guy. Until then, your art of the deal is just basically attack anybody that opposes you for any reason. Doesn't matter how personal it gets. And then go on and do whatever the heck you want to. Damn, or the Constitution be damned. See, that's unacceptable. And it needs to stop. And Americans need to stand up in droves and say, President Trump, we love you, brother, but you can't do that. Okay, now Greene's getting threats over Trump and her harassers are being egged on. See, this has no place in America, President Trump. Why do I push so hard on this? Because Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, stood up on the stage and said, I forgive. Trump got up right after and says, I don't forgive, I hate. Out of line, President Trump. You're out of line. And now, instead of staying home defending America, making America great again, President Trump's going to go hang out at the World Economic Forum. Trump will attend the World Economic Forum and their annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland in 2026. He's getting ready to gear up and go there. Now, the problem is Donald's been, very critical when he goes there. He's kind of upset them and spoke, a lot of people applaud that. But see, I don't know why you go and then just applaud the attack on the World Economic Forum. Why are you there in the first place, President Trump? If you're America first, not a globalist, why are you at the World Economic Forum in the first place? They say the event is known for addressing international policy priorities, including combating disinformation and climate change. These people aren't going to listen to you, Trump. They want to, listen, combat disinformation. Who decides what disinformation is? See, we thought President Trump was going to be the guy that advocated for everybody to be able to say and think and believe what they want, right? Not Greene. Not Massey. Not Paul. No, not Sam Bushman. No. They're enemies of the state, according to Donald, right? Addressing international policy. I'm not interested in international policy. I'm interested in United States policy. America first, baby. How serious are we about that? That's what I want to know, right? Trump has previously attended the forum during his presidency and spoke virtually to them in 2025. See, he loves it. He basically talks to those people all the time. He won't come on the radio and talk to me, but he'll talk to the clowns at international forums that want to undermine everything he does. At least it looks like that. The final list of participants for the meeting, of course, will be released 1 week before it begins. They don't want us to have the list too early. We might talk people out of going or something, right? Trump criticized the Green New Deal. That's not Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's just the Green New Deal backed by Pelosi and Ocasio-Cortez. And Trump criticized the Green New Deal and the Paris Climate Accord in his past remarks to the World Economic Forum, emphasizing our sovereignty and our secure national borders. I commend him for that. But why even go to their event and give them credibility is what I want to know. Why not speak publicly in America and denounce the organization, which literally has no basis in law, no basis in fact or authority or sovereignty or constitutionality, or I can keep going. The WEF, the World Economic Forum, has recently conducted an investigation into allegations of, quote, financial and ethical misconduct against its founder, Klaus Schwab. Why? Well, they found more issues about his activities in July. You got criminals involved in the World Economic Forum. You've got Donald claiming he's America first. First thing he does is run to these people and talk to them. And he browbeats them and everything else. But it's kind of like, here's the Trump attitude. I'm for the World Economic Forum if they do what I say, otherwise they're enemies. See? That's how Donald is starting to operate. No offense, but it's kind of like a 3-year-old little baby. Donald gets mad, throws his sucker in the dirt if it doesn't go his way. If it goes his way, he'll heap praise on you till the cows come home. Oh my gosh, this person, that person, they're the best thing since sliced bread. They're just incredible. And then they do one wrong thing, one misstep. He feels like it's a loyalty challenge, and he throws his sucker in the dirt and melts right on down. We've seen this pattern, literally, since he walked down the escalator in 2015. He's a mixture between a crime boss and a little baby is what he is. An immoral character that wants to court the Christians. Well, he did that. People thought he might be a baby Christian. Now he stands up on the stage and says he hates all of his enemies. What the Lord says, be danged, right? Okay, this is a problem. And you say, wow, Sam, you're sure boldly going after the president of the United States. I am. and I'll probably pay for it, and they'll probably throw me in jail, right? That's how they work. But when the people are afraid of the government, we have tyranny. When the government's afraid of the people, we have liberty. Am I afraid of Donald, or is Donald afraid of me? I'm probably more afraid of Donald than he is. Well, wait a minute. Donald's probably more afraid of me. Why? Because I'm calling truth to power. I'm laying out the facts. Shame on you, and don't you dare attack Thomas Massey for getting married to a new wife. He's got 4 children. He's in his 50s. You think he wants to be alone? His wife died way young. What a sad tale. Our prayers are with you, Thomas Massey. Our prayers are with you, Miss Greene. God bless America. And our prayers, believe it or not, are even with you, President Trump. I pray you come to your senses, brother.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
This is a battle between truth and deceit. A battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, "By having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids."
All right, so Thomas Massey, ladies and gentlemen, doing exactly what Mike Lee said in that commercial, Senator Lee, the answer to America's problems. Hey, we got to get married and have some children and that kind of stuff. But you got Klaus Schwab, this clown that got involved in all kinds of scandals that got investigated in July. Trump should be asking to disband the World Economic Forum, saying it was led by clowns and need to stop. But see, he's too busy attacking Greene and Massey and Paul and Sam Bushman and anybody that stands for the sacred cause of liberty, while he lets AOC and Nancy Pelosi and, he mocks them too, but he doesn't really go after them. George Soros and company, or the World Economic Forum, he's going to speak to them and he's going to beat them up over climate change, but nothing's going to change, see? And that's why I'm so hard on President Trump right now. When you violate the Constitution willy-nilly and you just don't care, and then you attack anybody who stands up for the supreme law of the land, that's when you've crossed the line. You've also crossed the line when you attack somebody on their marriage, telling somebody publicly the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest commitment we make in this life is to God Almighty and to our spouses. Now, maybe Donald doesn't take that as sacred as others do, but Thomas Massey was married to his wife for like 30 plus years. She was 51 when she died. He's like 54 right now. He's young. She was young. It's a horrible tragedy. Our prayers are with them. We should never mock that, never drag that into politics. So I want to be civil. And that's why at the end of the last segment, I said, I'm going to pray for you, President Trump, because I will. I wish you would just stop. Okay? I don't know what your agenda is anymore, but whatever it is, it's conflicting with my agenda. My agenda is really simple. I can boil it down to 6 words: God, family, country, life, liberty, property. That is my agenda. The protection thereof. The promotion thereof. And I believe the U.S. Constitution, the supreme law of America, is the key around the world for stability and safety and protection for people. It's been so for a couple of 100 years. Despite the abuses it's taken, it stood strong, baby. It's been loyal. And it's accountable when we let it be. Anyway, now Speaker Mike Johnson, who's getting no attacks from President Trump, interestingly enough. Speaker Mike Johnson responded to critiques, if you will, about the House's, quote, inactivity during the 43-day government shutdown. Yeah. Clarifying that although lower chamber was out during the first, 42 days plus the week before that, everything else, he says, well, look, don't worry, we're at a work district period, which means we're supposed to go home and talk to our constituents. That's what he says. How many of you people out there listening to me were spending time with your representative while the shutdown happened? How many people spent time with their representatives? Were your representatives touring your local area and saying, let's have town hall meetings and talk and discuss and meet and greet and talk about I don't think so. I didn't hear a single word from any of my representatives. In fact, some of them I tried to call, they were just too busy to talk to me because the government was shut down. Yeah. Even the gal that's Trump's press secretary wouldn't take my calls. When you call, you just got a voicemail. Remember, I played this on the air. She's like, I can't take your call. The government's shut down. So don't tell me they're out meeting and greeting and working the ropes and all this stuff, Mike. Everybody knows that's a clown show, dishonest answer. Okay? I don't mean to be offensive. I'm just telling you that's bogus. Now listen to the next statement Mike Johnson makes. Johnson noted on Fox News, see, on Sunday that this period involved, quote, constituent interaction. I didn't see much of that. And did not equate to a holiday. Okay, I don't believe that for a second, but there you go. He emphasized the, quote, continuous work of the House, particularly pointing to the labor appropriators amid the shutdown. Do you guys know what labor appropriators are? Or the labor of appropriators? First off, you got to know what appropriators are, right? I'm going to tell you what appropriators are. Listen up. I'll try to bring it to the kitchen table for you. Appropriators are lawmakers who serve on House Appropriations Committees. That's why they're called appropriators, right? They sit on these committees. There's a Senate Appropriations Committee, and these committees write the, quote, annual appropriations bills. In other words, the laws that actually spend, and it says the government's money, but it's really we the people's money, right? Think of Congress, ladies and gentlemen, in two steps, okay? One, authorization committees. They decide what programs are allowed to exist and set maximum funding levels. By the way, the Republicans and Democrats have been sharing that responsibility since our country's founding. And all they've done is ran us into the ground, ran us off the rails, spent us into oblivion, $38+ trillion in debt and growing at an alarming rate. And all Donald has time for is to attack Greene, put her life in jeopardy. Shame on that. So number one, they sit on these committees and they pontificate and babble and decide how much money they're going to spend, right? Way too much, that's for sure. The second one are called appropriations committees. They decide actually how much money is going to get spent. They say appropriators handle step number 2. What appropriators do? They decide all federal government spending. They decide how much money each department and program receives. You know, they do with defense, Homeland Security, IRS, education, transportation, agriculture, health programs, foreign aid, and all other federal agencies. Nothing gets done without these committees writing the checks, they say. That's false. They're spending us into oblivion whether these clowns are writing checks or not. They were shut down not writing any checks. But as far as I've been told by the mainstream press, we're going in the hole by the tunes of billions of dollars. How does that happen? They write the 12 annual appropriations bills. Federal spending is broken into 12 major categories and subcommittees like defense, agriculture, Homeland Security, labor, HHS, state and foreign operations, commerce, justice, and science, Anyway, they write a bill for each category every year. Yeah, they control earmarks when the earmarks are allowed, see? In other words, that's specific local projects. When you want to bring home the bacon, they control all that. They oversee how agencies spend money. They write documents that change policy. Why appropriators are so powerful? Well, they control the purse strings, ladies and gentlemen. And so they were sitting at home controlling the purse strings while nobody was working. Leadership relies upon them to avoid shutdowns. Well, no, not this time. Agencies and lobbyists try to continually influence them. That's for sure. So maybe they weren't really meeting with constituents like you and I think. Maybe that word means meeting with lobbyists, right? They can reward or punish by their decisions. Senior appropriators are some of the most influential members of Congress. There's a reason the old saying in Washington is, appropriators are the ones who actually decide what happens. Anyway, it's a disgrace. So, Johnson really being protected by Trump. Trump being protected by Johnson. They got a cabal going on, folks. Meanwhile, they attack Greene and Massey and Paul and anybody standing up for the Constitution. And the sad part is it becomes a distraction. Now MAGA's all confused. They don't know who to trust. They don't know whether releasing the Epstein files is good or bad or right or wrong because, well, Donald was for it before he was against it, before he was for it, before he was against it, before he whatever. And now while Trump's going to gear up to attend the World Economic Forum and attack Thomas Massey for his marriage, Mike Johnson's going to respond to critiques and go, oh, we were really working, I promise. Do you buy it? Well, the sad part about all this is there's a new Harris poll out, and it reveals, quote, financial stress among many Americans who actually earn six figures. You see, when you started to earn six figures, you're kind of like, hey, I made it. I've got stability in my financial world. But a third of responses now earning at least $100,000 annually report being, quote, financially distressed. Why? Because 2/3 of these high earners do not use their salary as indicative of wealth. They say, believe it or not, the salaries barely cover necessities. Yeah, many people are saying, hey, this kind of an income is barely surviving now. 3/4 of these people have relied on credit cards recently due to the fact that they're running out of cash. Wow. Over half believe they need to double their income just to feel secure. Inflation, by the way, and this is really an important takeaway, inflation is 24% increase since 2020. It necessitates an equivalent over $170,000 to equal what $100,000 was before 2020. That's per Comerica Bank. Now, you can say, well, that's Biden. He was in control most of that time. Look, Trump handed the baton to Biden. Now Trump's had authority for the last almost year. I don't see a whole lot improving. Trump promised gas would be around $2 a gallon. Not when I go fill my tank. It's not even close. It's still well over $3 a gallon. This issue is exacerbated in large, expensive cities because it's even more expensive to live there. Bottom line is Americans are suffering. Americans are suffering indeed. And Joe Rogan is warning of a possible civil war due to the reactions to Charlie Kirk's assassination. That's where we go off and say we hate our enemies, right? It's got to stop, people. I agree with Erica Kirk. Love, kindness, respect, dignity, honor, forgiveness. In short, following the Prince of Peace is the only answer. I'm Sam Bushman. You're watching and listening to Liberty Roundtable Live, hard-hitting news that others refuse to use, syndicated by Loving Liberty Networks. Check it out at lovingliberty.net. And God save the Republic of the United States of America.